Hello and welcome to week 2 of Nurture Nature, our collage project inspired by local wildlife and looking at the work of artist Mark Hurld. So last week you were face to face, this week it's at home, and it's experimenting with paper collage techniques. So I'm just going to do a little bit of a demo, but the main thing I want you to do is just experiment at home and have fun playing with the collage. We've got lots of time until we make our final collage piece. So it's just about playing with the techniques and seeing what you like and what you don't like. So this week you'll need your paintbrush, possibly, and some water. I'll just put that to the side, and your watercolour paints. See if I can open those. You don't have to use those, but you might want to use those. You definitely need some scissors, a glue stick, possibly a pencil. Let's just put those there. And your collage papers. So in your kit, you'll have got some tissue paper, some printed papers. They might not be the same as this, but similar to this. Some with natural textures, some with flowery patterns. I've also put in some pages from a seed catalogue. So you've got collage paper in your kit if you have a kit, but also I want you to collect stuff. So I'll put those to the side a minute. This is the wrapper from an orange or an apple or something. Any food wrappers, you could use the label off a tin of baked beans, chocolate wrappers. If you get any shiny bits of paper, that's quite nice sometimes. Old leaflets, places you might have visited, maps, tickets, anything that might have a bit of meaning to you. Envelopes, you get lots of lovely patterns inside envelopes. Stamps, bits of brown paper, paper bags, pages out of magazines and newspapers. So try and collect some of your own papers, and then it has a bit more meaning. In the worksheet this week, on the front page, there's a fantastic collage by Mark Hurld from a recent exhibition, and it's quite interesting because it's got this dark background and it's got all sorts of creatures on it. So it's got a fox and some birds that you might see around here. It's got a fancy bird there, a monkey, a lion, a frog, lots of plants. So that's a really good picture to look at for ideas. You've also got your pictures on your introduction worksheet. There's that lovely collage there of a fox and a rabbit, and there's the one there of the pigeons flying over the rooftop. So you've got lots of inspiration there from Mark Hurld. But what I really want you to do is get out and about and go for a walk, be active. We're linking into the 5 ways to well-being. So if you can get outside and go for a walk and just see what you can see. And on the back of your worksheet, you've got a copy of this paper here. Oh. And this is some of my experiments, and this is based on a walk. I haven't made a picture, but I went out for a walk. I went up the hills, and I've got some magazine pages there with hills on. The sky was blue. It was a nice day. I saw trees with no leaves on because it was a few weeks ago before the leaves came. Leaves blowing around in the wind, old dried dead leaves. There's a bird. I've made that bird out of leaf shapes, very simple shapes, a bit like we used in the Mexican embroidery project. I've cut some grass shapes there out of a magazine page or the seed catalogue with the peas on. You can cut actual shapes. I've made a little lettuce there, just cut it straight out of the magazine. Here I've used that gold shiny behind a window. You know, sometimes when you look across a valley and the sun's low in the sky, it shines on the windows like that. You can do weavings. You can use text, all sorts of different text. You get different shades with different types of text. And look at the difference between tearing the paper and cutting the paper. So you've got torn edges, cut there, torn there. And here on the sky bit, I've painted over the top with some quite thin watercolour paint. So we don't want to take away the patterns and that's in the papers. But you can see how the paint really sticks to the edges where it's torn and gives a really nice effect. So I want you to have a play around with your papers, and you can make a page like this with loads of different examples in. or you can make a picture if you want to. It's up to you. You might want to make your own collage papers. Here's a couple of little pieces that I made, and I used the wax resist technique like we did with the birds last week. So the same, I've put wax crayon on there, and then I've put a very thin watercolour wash over that one, and on this one I've put the thin watercolour over, but then I've built it up with more layers, and so you can make your own papers as well. So I just want you to play around with things and do something like that. If you prefer to make a picture rather than a page like that, here's a little example of a picture. So I haven't stuck that bird on yet. I'm going to put him to the side. When you work with collage, you have to start at the back and work forward. So you have to put your layers in the right order. So I've started off with the sky. And again here, I've used some bits of torn envelope. I've used some of this patterned paper that you've got in your kit. I used some of this dark blue from the fruit wrapper. And I used some bits from magazines. There's actually little hill scenes in there. So I've torn it in strips, and you'll find when you tear paper, whatever paper it is, when you tear it in one direction, you get little bits coming off all the time like that. You can't tear a smooth line going in that direction. If you tear it in the other direction, it will nearly always tear in a nice straight line. So experiment with that, different ways of tearing paper. And for the sky, I've torn it like that, and I've placed it in that direction, the sky sort of going across to give that look of the sky moving across. So all those bits are placed horizontally. Then I've got a stone wall. I saw a bird sitting on a stone wall when I was out on that walk, and I've made the stone wall by using magazine pages, and I've taken things like this pavement area here, or that you could use the walls of the house, and I've just torn this into rough brick shapes. I'll just move that bit over, I'll come to that in a minute. Just torn rough brick shapes. Now you might want to paint underneath first, so when you're putting your bricks down, you don't have a perfect white in between them. So you could paint the background first with a bit of watercolour, or I stuck mine down like that, and then I painted in between with the watercolour afterwards. I cut some bits of trees out of a magazine to make moss on top of the wall. These little plants here are cut out of some wrapping paper, and they were very white against the brick wall, so I just put a little bit of green paint on top, and then I've layered some strips of green tissue. You can put tissue in the sky as well, it'll change the colour of things, it's quite effective. In the other example here, I've used tissue paper in the sky, and the paint on top is quite nice, and you can build up lots of different shades with tissue paper. So I've done the sky, then the wall with the moss on top, then the little plants, then the green tissue, and I did just start drawing some little bits of grass on the bottom there. I'm just using a biro here because that's what I've got to hand, but you could use your marker pen or felt pens and add extra. I've cut out some little birds in the sky, and then I've made this little bird out of some of the collage paper. I've given him a shiny gold eye, cut a wing out of a different paper, and I've put him together first. The legs are just made from some of this printed paper. You can draw the bird on the back and cut it out, or just have a go at cutting. And then he can sit on top of the wall like that. I'll glue him on in a minute. So yeah, let's glue him on now. Actually, I said in a minute, but I'm going to glue him on now. Use your glue stick, and if you've got quite a big piece to glue on, put the glue on the back of the shape like that, and then glue it down. So I'm going to stick the bird there on top of the wall, which is where I saw him. When you're doing something like the sky and you've got lots of little bits to put down, it might be easier to put the glue onto the paper first like that, and then start adding your strips of paper on top like that. there you'll need an extra bit of glue because that's not going on the paper. If you've got tiny pieces like the bird's eye, it's easier to put the glue onto the background and then pop it on top, but you'll work it out. With tissue paper, it's always best to glue the background first. So let's put a bit of background in, and I don't know where I've put my tissue paper. There it is. If you try and spread glue onto tissue paper, it's really difficult to do. So definitely if you're using tissue paper, put your glue on the background and then glue your tissue paper on, and you can see what a nice effect that has. Now this little picture looks so much better when you put a frame round it. So I've just cut this shape out of a piece of plain paper, and there you can see you've got a nice little picture. That's the sort of thing we're going to aim for at the end of the whole project, but a little bit more to it. Couple of other things. Let's move those bricks out of the way. Think about your background. So here I've cut some grass out of the paper I made with the wax resist technique. Now I could put that onto a white background like that. I could paint the background first with some green paint so that the gaps between are a different shade of green. Or you might want to try putting it onto a dark background. You get quite a different look when you put it on a dark background. If you haven't got any black paper, you can paint some or just use a dark page out of a magazine. I've got a little bird there that I've made with the other wax resist. And the little bird is okay on the white, but he really comes to life on the black background. So you can do something that's quite a realistic picture. You can make a page of experiments, or you can do something that's just kind of funky and cute, like the little bird on the black background there. I think one thing that I will say is about cutting out. So when you're cutting, you could draw a bird on the back of your page and cut around. When I cut round a curve, I open the scissors up, and then as I gradually close the scissors, turn the paper. When you get to the end, open the scissors up, turn the paper around. I find that's the easiest way of cutting. So that would be the bird. We could then cut a wing and an eye for him. But have a go just with a piece of scrap paper. Just cut shapes. Just have a go at cutting. The more you cut, the easier it gets. I think this paper's a bit shiny maybe on the film. Let me find a piece that's not shiny. Let's use this brown paper. Try cutting shapes. Try cutting curvy shapes. Just get used to using the scissors and play about. It doesn't have to be going on your collage. Just get an old piece of newspaper or something. Try cutting out shapes. Then you could try cutting out a bird without drawing it first. So let's see, we would go round like that and out for the beak. I think I went off camera there. Now this bird, I haven't left enough space for his tail. So I'm going to finish the bird off like that. Little bird there, and then I'm going to cut some bits for his tail. So let's go back to that simple leaf shape, and then you can add that on. Let's have a tail feather going there. Could do another one. I keep going off the camera, sorry. There we go, and we need a wing. Let's cut a wing out of something different so it shows up. So I'm going to cut a wing. I'm going to just cut that leaf shape again out of this paper. Could have a wing there. We might want his tail coming down. So play about with the pieces when you've cut them as well. You don't have to glue them down straight away. Everything's sticking to my fingers. But we are going to get a little bird here. So there's the bird. There's his wing. Here's a couple of tail feathers. Whoops. And then you can cut his feet. Let's cut his feet out of this. You can just do sort of 2 feet in one, which is what I've done here. Snip that up and across there. And then you can pop that underneath. He's got some legs, and you could do an eye. So just play about with cutting, using the scissors, try tearing a bird, but play about with techniques and just have fun with it. It's not a final piece, it's going to be done in your sketchbook, and it's just to practice the technique. So when we move on to the later on weeks when we're going to make an actual picture collage for someone, you'll be confident with the collage, paper collage part of it. So that's it from me this week. I'm going to put that on there. You can do something like that or something like that, but have fun cutting and tearing paper. And I'll see you all back in face-to-face meetings for printing and stenciling next time. Bye.